right, so Chris.
All right, so welcome everyone. We're using, as a reminder, we're using the meeting format rather than webinar, and we use that so that we can see all your smiling faces because we miss everyone, rather than just having a blank screen. So just know you're welcome to keep your camera on or turn it off, up to you. Please mute so that we don't have too much disruption within the audio. I know I'm guilty of having a dog barking in the background now and again, and that can be disruptive. So if during the meeting portion, if you could go ahead and mute, that would be great. So the holiday party, we've got a save the date for Wednesday, December 9th. We are super excited about this. We're doing a virtual wine tasting with Bell Vineyards, and they have a very charming host that will tour us virtually on a selfie stick through the vineyards and into the barrel rooms and go over wine tastings with us. So if you sign up, you'll receive a box of wine. Who doesn't like that? And it'll be 4 small bottles of wine with some tasting notes, and it'll come just a couple of days before shipped to your home. So we'll be coordinating that. There's a registration fee which covers the cost of the shipping, but the tasting box that is going to come to you via the AIA Silicon Valley chapter. So I hope you can join us for that. It's fun, it's entertaining. We'll have lots of time to network. If for those of you who joined us for the design awards and did the networking after, it's a great chance to just go into Zoom rooms and visit with old friends and colleagues and people that we're just not seeing right now. And I think we all miss. So I hope that you can join us for that. We do have a limited number that we can entertain on the Zoom. So make sure when you see that registration button come out, I recommend signing up very quickly because we probably will fill up rather fast. So we're looking forward to that. We have some upcoming events to close out the year. We have Thursday, November 19th, Designing for Circular Building Materials, San Francisco to New York, a San Francisco to New York City conversation. That's from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. We have an ARE 5.0 on Thursday, November 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. Study session. And then we're wrapping up part 3 of our rebroadcast of the ADA webinar that we hosted in June, and they were kind enough to allow us to rebroadcast for those who still needed to get those learning units. So we're happy to be able to host those, and then that will take us right into December and the holiday party.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. So as always, to begin our chapter meetings, I'd like to acknowledge our sustaining partners. As we all know, 2020 has been a difficult year, but thankfully we've had the tremendous support of our sustaining partners. To begin with, our premier sustaining partner is Earthbound Homes. Many of you guys know Dr. David Edwards of Earthbound Homes and his involvement with the COAT committee as co-chair, including a speaker in this evening's program. Earthbound Home is a client-focused custom home residential company. David and his team are passionate about building sustainable and timeless homes. Our next sponsor is SR Freeman. We've been raving about SR Freeman all year at our meetings as being the best framing contractor in the Bay Area. And I would recommend that you just speak with our board of director member, Noel Cross, and he will tell you all about his experiences and how he has clients that will only work with SR Freeman. And grateful for SR Freeman and reminded of them when I see their trucks around town, and I'll even see some of their guys going for runs after work on the Los Gatos Creek Trail. So it's nice to have them in Campbell, but they serve the entire greater Bay Area. Our next sponsor is Bayprint Solutions, and Bayprint Solutions prides themselves as being or serving as our local print shop. And they do just that in terms of the personal client care, but they're anything but that in terms of being a small print shop. They have incredible capacity, including the Arizona printer, which allows them to do tremendously large prints on virtually any material. And most recently, Bayprint Solutions printed the pamphlets for the design awards, so we're very thankful to them. Next sponsor is BLACH Construction. BLACH has been a generous supporter of our chapter in addition to being a sustaining partner. Most recently, they also supported the design awards. And in preparing this evening's 2000s decade presentation, I found this ad here on the right from the early 2000s, where BLACH was supporting our chapter in one of our issues of Tracing's newsletter. And our next sponsor is ArchIT. ArchIT's team is tirelessly 24/7 supporting the Bay Area's architecture, engineering, construction industry through our continued remote working. Boris, the CEO and founder, has been working with both Kristen and Chris through the year to make sure that our systems are backed up and able to work remotely. Boris has also been serving as a member of the programs committee and helping with rescheduling this year's events. Our next sponsor is Murray Windows and Doors. Carol and her team have an office, or showroom I should say, in San Carlos and in Camel, which allow her and her team to support you and your clients in terms of making the important decisions revolving around doors and windows for your projects, but also to bring your clients in and to help them make decisions. Precision Property Management or Measurements is our next sponsor, and PPM is they pride themselves in taking the worry out of as-builts for both existing residential buildings and commercial projects. They produce both 2D and 3D CAD files, and they, with this particular COVID environment, they have a very minimally invasive 3D scanning technology that allows them to come in and make it very easy on your clients. And moving into next year, PPM is working with board director Caroline Kwok to develop a series of relatively exciting virtual home tours for the coming year. So that's something to look forward to in 2021. Okay. And so here we are at the 70th anniversary, and Missy Mrokovic helped put together this evening's presentation. We are looking at the 2000s, and next month at the holiday party, we'll start out with looking at the 2010s, and Caroline will be presenting that. And this gives you kind of like a brief outline of what that agenda will look like as we're wine tasting in between. So the idea is to break up the discussion items amongst wine tasting. So I think by the time we get to the retreat goals, it'll be quite a fun meeting. All right, so starting out with in 2000, it was our chapter's 50th anniversary, and President Edwin Bruce introduced the year on a similar note as we did this year by recognizing that our chapter's history shows that the challenges we face in recent history are not necessarily new challenges. And a month or two passed, and I think in 2020 we've run into a new challenge as a chapter. Wesley Chow, AIA, helped collect the chapter's photos and graphics for the book and the celebration of history. Jennifer Kretschmeyer was an associate director during organizing with David Kaneda an MEP AR seminar. Jennifer got a fancy state-of-the-art laptop set up at the chapter office, which had mock exams that aspiring architects could go and practice on. It's important to recognize that your future chapter president, Jennifer, used to be a competitive figure skater. The AIA Silicon Valley area was recognized as one of the most expensive regional housing markets in the country. At that time, in 2000, the median housing price had escalated to $430,000. Today, we can just add $1 million to that for the median house price. And the issue of low-cost affordable housing was as much of an issue back then as it is now. Our executive director, Kent Mathers, AIA, referred to grassroots that year as snow roots due to the amount, I think they had 14 inches of snow that year. And that year, one of the big things to come out was that the AIA documents were being released onto the web and onto compact discs. The holiday party was held at the chapter office, which was under construction at that point, thanks to HPC Architects with Steve Cox, past president or president AIA, and within his office, Jeff Valix. And that year, let's see, the David Lampach Scholarship started with initial donation by Ron Roniking and his firm, CAS Architects. In 2001, our chapter president was David Kaneda, AIA. He recapped the year by recognizing the incredible value that AIA at that time was California Council and is now AIA California. And I have to completely agree with that statement. And then thanks to Natalie Thompson, AIA, and Kathy Turner, AIA, our chapter served as a test bed for AIA National and AIA California, looking for new and innovative ways to package its services and re-examining the word architect. Dan Kirby, AIA, conceptualized our corporate partner system, which we now refer to as sustaining partners, which, as David put it, was a win-win in terms of raising funds for the chapter, but creating a forum that allowed us to network with other people and groups within the construction community. The Design Awards that year was so successful that it was published in San Jose Magazine. And Arts 101 with Judith Wasserman and Pam Anderson-Belay allowed our members to become local experts in planning commissions. Some needed basic training and architectural concepts. I wanted to go back here. So what was important about 2000 was our first inhabitants of the International Space Station took place. And Y2K was happening, so the world was going to end as we knew it, and Bill Gates left Microsoft. Sorry, I'm forgetting to get into the things at the top. Obviously, in 2001, 9/11 took place, and Enron collapsed. Okay, and then so Jennifer Kretschmeyer was again very active within the chapter. And she revamped the ARE study sessions, and she worked with AIA California on developing a mentoring program. Golf tournament was incredibly successful that year. And to end of the year, David Kaneda recognized Kent Mathers, AIA, and that his dedication to the profession and the chapter demonstrated that one person can make a difference. It was Kent's hard work and steady hand that benefited the chapter immensely. 2002. Pam Anderson-Belay was our chapter's president, and she entered the year obviously in the kind of the aftermath of 9/11, and so our world had radically changed. But she had two initiatives. The first one was this idea of out of the shell, and it was focusing on stronger connections with each other, and this kind of came about through the firm roundtable, which allowed firms of all sizes to get together and go over the challenges that they're facing at the different scales that they operate at. And then legacy building. So moving from asking what has the AIA done for me to what have I done to improve our practice and our community. The convention was held in Charlotte, North Carolina, where Jennifer Kretschmer, again, was named National Associate AIA Member of the Year. And that year, Jan Camachi, Associate AIA, also known as Super Jan, ran the Design Awards with the theme Vision of the Valley. And the holiday party was held upstairs at the ABA office. I think that Pam's commute was very, very good that year between AI meetings and her office. And then Pam ended the year by answering the question that each president receives, is it worth it? And she quoted Theodore Roosevelt, every person owes a part of their time and money to the business or the industry in which they are engaged, and no person has the moral rights to withhold their support from an organization that is striving to improve the condition within their sphere. And Pam's response was, I'm proud that I support our chapter, which is most clearly striving to improve the conditions within our sphere. That year, the Department of Homeland Security was formed, and the No Child Left Behind Act was put in place, and Elon Musk started SpaceX, which I think is kind of interesting to note as we're sending up our second rocket to the International Space Station earlier this week. In 2003, President Steve Cox, AIA, focused on 3 goals that year. First was public relations, where with Frank Jesse, AIA drafted the public relations directives to serve as a guidance for the committees. Second was our chapter's voice. Kent and Steve participated in the San Jose Chamber of Commerce to adopt policies with San Jose as related to hiring local design firms for local projects coming from public funds. Third was to encourage and mentor our chapter's associates. And Nathaniel Walker organized the ARA study group, increasing exam pass rates that year. And Nathaniel would go on to become the state IDP coordinator. The chapter had a strong student chapter at West Valley College, where I entered the chapter as AIA student president. Natalie Thomas, AIA, completed her term as director and liaison of the membership committee. And those of you that were in the new member orientation before this meeting will recognize that Natalie has been doing this for the chapter for many years, and we greatly appreciate all that she puts into it. David Kaneda, AIA, completed his term as past president, making his term on the board 6 years. And then Ken Huseby of Hill House, Chris Warner's former boss and good friend, became the first affiliate member to chair the programs committee. I think that Kent really set the standard and bringing in affiliate members into our committees, and I think have really added value to our chapter through our committees. We toured the new San Jose MLK library, which the interior design was done by ABA. And the and then Jennifer Kirchmeyer passed the exam and became a licensed architect. And Lee Salen was able to survey the chapter in terms of member data, in terms of what was important to the membership, which led well into his 2004 presidency. To point out things that happened that year, the Human Genome Project was completed, and the Concorde flew its last flight this year. Okay, in 2004, Lee Salen was the chapter president, and he guided the chapter to make positive moves and choices. Lee demonstrated that the AIA helps promote the profession and provides members with access to knowledge resources through opportunities to promote professional development, learn best practices, share information, and benefit from our colleagues, such as meetings like tonight. Judith Wasserman led the Arts 101 with the presentation not only to the city of Palo Alto, but she also presented at Grassroots in DC and at the annual CASE meeting in Michigan. Also in DC, the chapter leadership represented the chapter advocating for current AI legislation to issue national and state representatives. I think that our presence at Grassroots is always we learn a lot in the experience, but I think it's great to meet our local representatives on the other side of the country to show how important we take the issues. Co-chair Yvonne Farrell organized a Green Fair that year to educate and provide resources and tools to not only our membership, but also industry partners and the general public. And the Public Relations Committee, chaired by Steve Cox and Frank Jesse, made the chapter's voice heard on issues concerning building and planning department fees, design build ordinances, and project development lobbying. And Dan Kirby increased the number of corporate partners from 3 to 6 that year, which is an important step in our chapter's success. At the top here, we have the guys that founded YouTube. And we had, what was it called? It was a costume malfunction at the Super Bowl that year, and our first rover on Mars landed. And then in 2005, Richard Kirchner, AI led the board as president, and Kent Mathers was promoted to executive vice president. The co-committee held the second successful Green Fair that year again. Jennifer Kirchmeyer and Jeff BLACH developed a successful set of programs for the year, including setting a chapter attendance record for the January meeting, expanding the A101 training program held at the California Theater. Grassroots was in DC that year, where our leadership continued to lobby for living communities. And President Richard Kirchner pointed out that Grassroots is pursuing goals that improve our profession's ability to function in the marketplace while striving to preserve and improve the natural and built environment. The chapter business meeting was held at the San Jose City Hall that year. I think it was under construction, I'm not sure, but Warren Jacobson was the driving force behind coordinating that. Judith Washington and John Norway conducted a very successful design charrette in Palo Alto for the East Meadow Circle. And the West Valley College students, Jimmy Godinez and Nicole Wolfinger, brought student involvement to the board and the chapter. We point out that Jimmy's wife works for David Edwards. The convention was held in Las Vegas that year, so I think everyone had a very good time. The New Orleans was flooded that year by Katrina, and the Olympics were held in Greece that year, which I think both events brought up infrastructural and environmental issues to our profession. 2006, Frank Jesse, AIA, led the chapter as president. And the chapter was working at the national level in DC to support PV or photovoltaic building innovations and community and affordable housing developments. In Sacramento, the chapter lobbied on issues related to the service taxes of architectural fees, which is just as relevant of an issue today. In Silicon Valley, Liz Gibbons, AIA, led a polling effort on key policies vital to our membership, and published that data to the membership before voting in November that year. That year, John Loomis was elevated to the College of Fellows. Ken Rodriguez, FAA, led the incredible sold-out design awards held at the completed San Jose City Hall Rotunda, where Robert Steinberg received the Birch Clark Award that year. Building Information Modeling, or BIM, was starting to make was starting to change our industry rather. And before Google was renting or leasing NASA Ames Research Center, there was discussions of adaptive reuse and replanning. The original IBM campus started entering the discussion of Silicon Valley modernism and whether or not it could be a historic landmark. The national convention was held in LA that year. And in addition to voting for national delegates and issues, there were great new projects and tours, from case study homes to the Walt Disney Concert Hall. And the most important event that year is that I met my wife at the convention, and a couple years later, AIA invited Megan and I back to do a video recording of how Harry met Sally, which was very embarrassing and was shown at the 2013 convention. The holiday party was held at Warren Jacobs' house. Barry Bonds that year hit a couple home runs, and Google bought YouTube for $1.67 billion. And interestingly enough, YouTube, I guess, is worth somewhere between 160 and $300 billion today. The long disputed the Beatles recording label versus Apple was settled that year. I think that was 30 years. And then on a climate issue note, California suffered from a 2-week was a heat wave with record temperatures of 115 plus. In 2007, Alan Turner, AIA, served as chapter president for the Institute's 150th anniversary. Jeff Oberdorfer was elevated to the College of Fellows, and the chapter West Valley College students with DPR redesigned and constructed a small renovation project in a low-income neighborhood of San Jose. And the holiday party was held at the Julia Morgan project in downtown Saratoga, the Saratoga Hotel Country or Club. And so our chapter president in 1997 was looking for an active and effective executive director. And the question was, who better than Kent Mather? And so from 1997 to 2007, Kent Mather, FAIA, served as chapter executive director and the executive vice president and CEO. And the statement that Kent was the face of the chapter is absolutely true. I remember after, as a student, after one of the board meetings, leaving the meeting with Steve Cox and talking about like, so what's Kent's background? What this is like, he's pretty good at this, and he understands all this architecture stuff. And Steve told me, yeah, Kent used to be an architect, and we are incredibly lucky to have Kent as our executive director. And it was an honor to be on the board with Kent. And at his retirement party in 2007, so I was going to school in Los Angeles at the time, and I flew back with Megan to go to Kent's retirement party at Stanford, and it was an honor to get to work with Kent. In 2008, Tom Horan, AIA, served as chapter president. That year, we had Marshall Purnell, FAIA, became the first African-American president to serve at the AIA national level. That year, in the summer, we had a very successful youth program with the kids of Los Altos. And the iPhone came out that year, or iPhone came out in 2007, but we started throwing away Blackberries in 2008. And Arch 101 continued to serve, generating the chapter and as a resource for local planning departments. That year, Renzo Piano became the recipient of the AIA Gold Medal. In 2009, Liz Gibbons, AIA, served as chapter president. She opened the year with strong connections from the AIA values with the newly elected 44th US President inaugural address. So along premise, the way we use energy strengthens our adversaries and threatens our planet. Values, we cannot consume the world's resources without regard to its effects. And challenge, we will roll back the specter of a warming planet. That year and that, I guess, election cycle, the California high-speed rail was starting to enter transit planning and discussions from Diridon to Palo Alto. Tony Crusoe and John Barton, FAA, led a local urban design effort to underground the high-speed rail line through Palo Alto. The national convention was held in San Francisco, where the AIA partnered with then Mayor Gavin Newsom of San Francisco to select and honor San Francisco's greenest buildings. And that year, the AIA initiated the Citizen Architect campaign, and the chapter focus was on the economic downturn and working diligently to sustain our organization and our corporate partners, but most importantly, keeping membership up and membership dues down. So Steve Cox, in his final presidential letter, December issue in Tracings, he says he was referring to looking back, looking forward, similar to our looking forward to look back this year. But he quoted Dr. Freeman Harabowski, president and still president of the University of Maryland. And he said that architecture is the most permanent indicator of our society's principles. And so if architecture represents, is a representation of social and economic forces, how is COVID-19 influencing architecture? And so I think that's kind of interesting as we get into this evening's discussion. But before we do that, I'd like to say, okay, well, in December, we'll be doing the 2010s as a decade, bringing up to the present. But before we get to the chapter program, meeting program, I wanted to congratulate our 2020 scholarship winners. We have Nam Bai from West Valley College, who received the William Howey Scholarship. Here's an example of some of his work. This is a pavilion near Happy Hollow in San Jose. And Ian Barragan, also from West Valley, is the recipient of the Leo and Trinidad Sanchez Scholarship. And here's some of his amazing work as he added a garden addition to the Frank Lloyd Wright Jacobs home. And then Alex Ho Ming Chow is from the University or UC Berkeley, and he is also a recipient of the William Howey Scholarship. And here's some examples of his incredible line work. And Antonetti Sapario is from Cal Poly Pomona, and she is the recipient of the Erlich Rominger Scholarship. And here's an example of some of her work. And Daniel Lee is from the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. It's also the recipient of the Erich Rominger Scholarship. So please congratulate them with me for their tremendous efforts and their talents and being part of our student chapter representing the area. Okay. And so I will stop sharing my screen and I'll give it over to Alex.
Hey everyone, can you all hear me? Okay, so I'm Fanny and I have Alex here kind of helping from the co-committee. So the co-committee came up with this, hosting this chapter meeting. We brainstormed a lot and thought, what is the most important topic we should discuss as a chapter, and just to brainstorm. We don't have a solution yet, right? Because we're still in COVID. So we just thought this is an interesting topic for us all to think about. So I'll just kick us off with the COVID pandemic has created disruptions in the supply chain, further revealed changes in the world's climate, and brought further light to the equity and diversity issues, both locally and globally. Those in the building industry who have advocated green building practices are facing new challenges and struggles. The panel discussion will feature 3 amazing experts in the green building industry who will share their experiences and responses to the pandemic and the built environment. So today, I think we have a poll question, correct? So just to...
We sure do.
So let's see if it comes up.
There we go.
Okay, so if everyone can see it on your screen, just kind of help us to gauge where you're at. So give it like a minute for everyone to get it. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you've had it. Cool. Okay.
Yep, we're starting to stabilize there. So we'll end the poll here and share the results with everybody. So here's where we stand.
Okay. It's pretty good.
Great.
Okay, so
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think everyone has probably some thoughts and attended a bunch of webinars and reading articles about, okay, what do we do? What do we do now, right? So I think this will just be a conversation. So we'll have our speakers to share a quick 10 minutes presentation each, and later on we'll have some questions that we generated from the co-committee and also from the survey that we sent out. And meanwhile, just type in the Q&A, and me and Alex will be monitoring, and we make sure that we'll get to it. So the first speaker I'll introduce is Jennifer Mitchell. She's a lead AP and senior manager design build at LinkedIn. Jennifer has more than 20 years of experience in the real estate and construction industry, servicing campus portfolios throughout the Bay Area. As a senior manager, design build at LinkedIn, Jennifer is cultivating the future of workplace at LinkedIn Sunnyvale and Mountain View headquarter campus. With a people-centric focus, sustainable design and construction are her fundamental principles. So welcome, Jennifer. And the next speaker panelist is David Arkin, AIA Lead AP. He's a principal at Untitled Architects. David is one of the founders and current director of California Straw Building Association. He is past president of Architects, Designers, and Planners for Social Responsibility, and served for 12 years as a member of a Solar Living Institute. He has taught and lectured on the subject of sustainable design for over 20 years. As a licensed architect since 1991, he spent 4 years as project architect and planner with vendor Wren Architects, most notably on the Real Good Solar Living Center, and apprenticed with O.B. Bowman at the Sea Ranch. While in graduate school in UC Berkeley, he also worked with Peter Calthorpe and Dan Solomon, focusing on mixed-use city and regional planning issues. David and Annie are married and live in a 100-year-old solar and wind-powered home in Albany, California, where David serves as a planning and zoning commissioner for over 10 years. So welcome, thank you for being with us today. And the last person, we already had a glimpse earlier, is David Edwards. He's also a co-chair. So we've been talking a lot, and sometimes we have some interesting discussions about the community and environment. So he is he's actually Dr. David Edwards, like he was saying, founder and CEO of Earthbound Home, located in San Jose, California, in addition to holding a master's and a PhD in biochemistry from the University of California, San Diego. He is a member of the U.S. Green Building Council and a Green Point Rater, a lead AP, and a HERS Rater, which is Home Energy Rating Services. After working in the biotech industry for several years, following his postdoctoral fellowship in Oregon and remodeling his own home for fun, Dave was asked to remodel a friend's home, and that's when he started Earthbound. And because he's an environmentalist, and most of the home built by Earthbound Homes far exceed the indoor air quality, energy efficiency, and durability standards of the industry. He is proud to reduce the environmental impact for homeowners and our planet. Among Dave's accomplishments include LEED Platinum homes, net zero energy homes, zero carbon homes, all electric homes, passive house homes, and the highest scoring Green Point rated home ever built in California. After 18 years of 100 of new homes and remodels, David is living his lifelong passion of building healthier homes for his clients. So welcome, David, and thank you for being here. So I think I will give the presentation to Jennifer, so she'll kick us off.
Well, hello, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Yes, good.
Yes, we can hear and see you.
Oh, okay, great. Presentation's loading. A little bit of slow connection, I think, because so many people on the call. How are we doing now? Good. Can you see my presentation?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So I'm from LinkedIn. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the pandemic and pause and prioritization, which is kind of what we're dealing with right now. So I'm a senior manager, design, build, workplace, as Fanny mentioned. So I work for LinkedIn, and I'm currently taking care of our capital improvement projects here in our Sunnyvale Mountain View headquarters. It's interesting. I'm going to talk to you about concrete, which you might think, why is someone from LinkedIn talking to us about concrete, and what does that have to do with the pandemic? But I think, to put it in one way, I think the pandemic has taught us how to pause and reprioritize. And I think as an organization, we're not only doing that as a company, but also as a workplace. We're taking this opportunity to pause and look at how we've been doing business and how we've been providing workplace to our employees, and looking at how that might be different in the future. A lot of you have probably worked for LinkedIn or companies like LinkedIn, from an architect or engineer capacity, and know that, it was go, go, go as fast as you can. We need space. We have 300 new people, need a new building. When do you need it? Yesterday. And so it's always been rush, 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 schedule, get buildings as fast as you can. And it didn't really give us the opportunity to really be truly thoughtful about long-term planning, our long-term sustainability, our long-term impacts. And if we had more time, how much better could we be? So now, as we take this pause with COVID and take this break, as has kind of been forced on us, we're looking at how we might do things differently. And sustainability, when we're looking at priorities of a project, in the past, it's typically not been the highest priority. Schedule's usually a top priority, budget's usually a top priority, and sustainability has typically taken kind of, a lesser priority. But as we are, after everything that has happened this year, and, Fanny mentioned like social justice issues and things about equity and equality, the climate is one of those, right? Climate change is a social justice issue. So if we think about that in that lens, and then we think about ourselves as the role that we have to play in sustainability and how we can really impact that, you could think of it as, ambassadors of social justice in the frame of sustainability. So that's what we're looking at as we think about what's next. How have we changed? We will never go back to business as usual. We won't be bringing our employees back to the same exact experience they had before. We're looking to do things better and to reprioritize what is important to us now, and how can we look at things, do things differently from the perspective of longevity and climate from a long-term perspective. On the picture I'm showing you here is a piece of our campus. This is our Mountain View campus here, and then stretching down Maud to Sunnyvale, across Sunnyvale is our Sunnyvale area. This is the building right here, building 1, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. It's actually my Zoom background. So you can see this picture was taken, I don't know, about a week ago. So in progress. So a little bit about me. I grew up in the construction industry and came from a family who owned a concrete company. So I have a little bit of perspective of, from that industry. I've also worked in design for a concrete manufacturer, for a general contractor, as a client rep, and now in the client position for LinkedIn. As you can tell, this is probably late 70s by my dad's haircut. And again, lead AP, building design and construction. My degrees are in environmental studies, actually, and I have past experience with ACI and National Ready Mix Concrete Association. So some formal training with regard to concrete testing and concrete design. So last year, when we started building one, we looked at how we could be more sustainable with our concrete. I think everybody has heard this before, how responsible cement is for our global CO2 emissions and what that means on a pound for pound basis. And we're all targeting how to reduce that and how to improve that number. What we did on building one was significantly reduce the amount of cement and concrete and sequester post-industrial byproducts in our concrete, including carbon sequestration, a product called Carbon Cure. And we did that, of course, by working in partnership with our ready mix producers, our general contractors, our architects, everybody on the team. So we started to implement some sustainable concrete technologies last year with building one. Building one is 245,000 square foot building with an additional parking garage, which you saw in the last picture. It's LEED Platinum, recycled water, 100% renewable, and all electric kitchen. And now we've added concrete as another sustainable element to that. We started with about 5 concrete mixes, pulled the S1 sheets out, looked at how we could do better on that. Ended up custom designing a total of 15 concrete mixes so that we could really capitalize on each individual application and get the most use out of reducing cement. So reducing cement as high as 70% in applications such as footings, and then keeping it pretty low, maybe like 10% in places where we had a post-tension deck and needed higher release strength. So by kind of widening our library of mixes, we were really able to capitalize on reducing our carbon footprint. And we avoided 4.8 million pounds of carbon from entering the atmosphere by employing these strategies. So what does that mean, and why is that even important? And what does that have to do with the pandemic or COVID? Well, as I mentioned, we're looking at the future and sustainability. And I think we're starting to understand that making that a priority means kind of changing how we've been doing business. Making this a priority means some other things are second priority. And this is, sustainability in the lens of our company as well as our parent company, Microsoft, is actually quite big. And I'm sure you've all heard about Microsoft's commitment to the 2030, 2050, as well LinkedIn. So our focus moving forward is really on our making sustainability a priority. So being carbon negative, zero waste, water positive, engaged employees, and green economy. So supporting growth of green jobs, green skills, and products that are that can be qualify as green as according to our sourcing. So our carbon negative pledge is to reduce scope 3 emissions by 55% by 2030. This includes our procurement from our suppliers, business travel and employee commute, support efforts by our suppliers and customers to improve their carbon impacts. We can't make our goals if our supply chain is not also supporting those goals. So we're really looking for suppliers that have green initiatives. Offset all historical emissions by 2050 and invest in carbon removal and sequestration innovation. So addressing carbon with concrete, the future. Obviously, concrete is the foundation, right? It's the foundation of every new building. So what better place to start with sustainability than the concrete and the foundation? And we're looking at capitalizing on what we did last year as far as sustainability, and then really taking that to the next level this year as we're looking at some of our future projects with the master plan, and really looking at the concrete and construction industries to really drive their technologies and their solutions to a place where they're getting us to a zero or negative carbon place in our building shell. And what that will allow us to do, if our building shell is net negative, we've got a little bit of a budget there to work with to have a TI build out that keeps us at net zero. There are some really interesting technologies out there for carbon sequestration with concrete, such as Carbon Cure is one I mentioned, Blue Planet. There's also some really great things happening with more sustainable cements. We're pretty excited about it, and we're really looking at that as a potential technology that gives us that foundation in our buildings of bringing us to a net negative embodied carbon place. So all in all, our building could be net zero embodied carbon. And I do a lot of talks on with the concrete industry, and just encouraging them to continue this path of working on their technologies and solutions, and really with a focus on partnership and collaboration. Some of the things that we've been able to do on our project that hadn't been done before are really because we had a complete vertical integration. We had everyone from the client, the architect, the engineer, the GC, the concrete manufacturer, the pump guy, the place and finish crew. Everyone who touched the product was involved in helping us figure out what the right technologies were, what the right solutions were for our project. So we're really relying on that model moving forward, that collaboration and that vertical integration to really get the right people at the table to solve the problem. And looking at, the physical and biological sciences working together, kind of a similar metaphor to what we've seen this past year, people on opposite ends coming together to work on something that has a shared goal. And I think that goes beyond just the physical sciences and structural engineering. We really need to be talking about the biological sciences and, marrying those two disciplines. We talk about academia plus tribal knowledge, the people who have the expertise and the education, and also those who understand the product, boots on the ground coming together. So we're really looking for, from the client perspective, as who out there can partner with us to really help us reach these goals of sustainability. We really want to get to a place where we're driving down embodied carbon in the built environment. We have several sustainable initiatives, but the one that really impacts the work that we're doing in Sunny Valley Mountain View relative to architecture and construction is really embodied carbon. A lot of us have done a lot of work on operational carbon over the last decades, and I think that is on a really good course. Embodied carbon is a little bit newer to the conversation, and there are a lot of solutions out there. And as the client, we're looking to to the industry to partner with us and really find those solutions. Now is the time to have the conversations. Now is the time to be partnering with your clients to talk about taking advantage of this pandemic pause and talk to them about what their new priorities are and how they're looking at developing their space and looking for change, and the way that that we go about not only building our space but delivering that space to our employees. And it requires a partnership, and it requires everybody involved to help make that happen. So lots of solutions out there. Interested to see what happens next with regards to concrete, but that is one little specialty that we're working on as far as embodied carbon, and we're really feeling like this is the right opportunity to take advantage of this pandemic pause and really be thoughtful about what we'll do moving forward. So that is that. So thank you. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. And then I think at the end, after we all present, then we'll have a little discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. That was a perfect segue into what I have to share with everyone this evening. And I want to congratulate all of the scholarship recipients. And again, Jennifer made a great connection between climate change, social justice, and COVID, and laying down, the groundwork of the embodied carbon impacts of concrete, which, like steel and glass and other materials, will have a carbon footprint. And yet we need to balance the carbon impacts of our buildings in order to hit the Architecture 2030 and global climate targets of a net zero carbon economy by the year 2040. And this is some good work from Architecture 2030, which is of course the basis of the AIA's 2030 commitment. And why is this important to our built environment? Well, 40% of the global CO2 emissions are due to buildings, and more than a quarter of that is based in the materials themselves, building construction activities, as well as the extraction and manufacture of those materials. So if we can reduce those impacts, which are impacts that happen sooner in the time frame of the life of a building, the easier it's going to be for us to meet these targets. So one of my areas of focus to share with you this evening is what's happening in the material, smart building material world. A lot of this growing out of the Carbon Leadership Forum and the Embodied Carbon Network, the Renewable Materials Task Force that I head up, and the product of our work, which is the Carbon Smart Materials Palette. And what we are looking for is some, magical machine that pulls carbon out of the atmosphere and somehow, locks it away somehow. And plants are one of the finest materials we have. They do this through photosynthesis, both into the soil and into the plants themselves. So if there's nothing else you take away from this talk this evening, it's this. And this is to paraphrase Michael Pollan's food rules: build shelter, not too big, mostly plants. And there are a lot of plant-based materials that are available to us. And in general, these materials are healthier and safer as well. And if we take this to scale, we can sequester enough carbon through our building materials to more than offset that 25% of the global CO2 emissions that are represented in transportation, for example. So let's just take a quick dive into what some of these materials are and where the best opportunities are for our integration of them. And insulation probably represents one of the greatest and easiest places of integrating carbon storing materials. You can see here, again, from the Carbon Smart palette, that a lot of the materials, insulations we use have a emitted carbon impact, but there are these other materials that actually, store carbon in the building. In the cavity insulation world, cellulose is one that we've probably all used, but sheep's wool is emerging, as is cotton, denim, and other fiber-based insulations. Straw in the form of either chopped straw, rice hulls, and a loose fill version of wool. And then emerging products that you might consider: mycelium, which is basically mushroom as an insulation, and other plant fibers that trap little pockets of air to create an insulation. In the building envelope ramp world, cork is a renewable resource. There are compressed straw boards that have been around since the 1940s. And then wood fiber board, Gutex is one that we're familiar with that's coming out of 475 in New York. And then, of course, cladding materials also represent a big opportunity for integration of plant-based systems and materials. Just a few other things worthy of mention: compressed straw in the form of a stack block product. Looks like a big Lego. CalPlant One is Willow's Northern California-based manufacturer that's making an MDF from rice straw. They should be online sometime in the fourth quarter of 2020 here. And then ICF, made of wood chips. Durasol, also known as Fazwall, is a product to consider for foundation and retaining applications. Just to shift slightly, other plant-based materials: timber, bamboo. Here, the beautiful work of Colombian architect Simon Velez. But once again, a Northern California firm that's taking timber, bamboo, and splitting it, flattening it, and creating a wall panel system known as BAMCore. a studless system where the interior and exterior panels do all of the both lateral and vertical load bearing with a perfect wall, no thermal transfer from one side to the other, and you can fill it with any insulation product you might. And they're taking this to scale with a type 3 multifamily wall system currently. Another product you've probably heard something about, there's quite a buzz around hempcrete, which takes the starchy hull, the center of the center of the cannabis stalk, and chops it up, mixes it with a lime binder to create an insulative substrate upon which plaster finish is applied on the interior and exterior. Similarly, light straw clay uses loose straw mixed with a clay slip and then compacted into formwork, once again creating a substrate that's both insulative and you can apply clay or lime plaster finishes to. Other combinations of clay and straw include adobe, which is, of course, been around a long time, actually in our building code, and then cob, a variation of that. Of course, the most popular plant-based building material is wood, and important that one chooses good wood, being FSC salvaged, or other resources that aren't having a negative impact on the forest soil complex. And of course, new and emerging ways of using and building with timber, heavy timber, cross-laminated timber, and taking these to taller and taller heights, and building codes are evolving in order to enable us to do this. And then a combination of these materials can be represented in the various prefabricated straw panels that are emerging. This is one from Canada. Here's the mod cell system from the UK. And now reaching North America is Eco Cocoon's panelized system, where the straw is somehow packed into a timber frame and then computer output from your design into a kit of parts to stack up and make a building. And the more traditional way of building with straw, straw bale construction, which is something that our firm has really embraced. As we like to say in the Straw Building Association, it's one of the most amazing American exports, like democracy and jazz. It's made its way around the world, has its roots in the Sand Plains region of Nebraska. Many, many benefits of it, and I'll just touch on a few of these this evening. It is in our building code. It's in the California Residential Code, a fully adopted section, and you can get that code with its commentary from the California Straw Building Association website, strawbuilding.org. First benefit worthy of mention is its insulation and thermal mass effect, and that green line down the center is the middle of the wall, which you can see is completely opposite of temperatures recorded on the interior and the exterior surface and air of the wall. So a 12-hour time lag is perfect for maintaining a passive solar comfort well within the comfort zone of a building. Next worthy of mention benefit of straw building is the fire resistance of it, both here in formal testing that was done, achieving a 2-hour fire rated wall, but also quite a bit of evidence from recent wildfires of the survival of straw bale buildings, often where neighboring structures were all or nearly all lost. This is a client of ours photographing his power building on fire from the safety of his home, where he, his dog, and a neighbor took refuge to survive this particular fire. Our firm is involved in some of the rebuilding of fires in Northern California. This project outside of Santa Rosa, and we actually held a COVID-safe straw bale raising where members of our firm and our engineer met with the family and friends to put the bales into the walls. It's actually wonderful. This was early in the COVID shelter in place, but rebuilding was an essential activity in Sonoma County. So we were able to hold a safe gathering, and in fact have brought our team together and a few more work parties at this same project. And just another example of some of the homes that have survived. And I think it's worth mentioning, you know, that fire safety and resiliency is one of the benefits of green building. And that, of course, needs to be balanced with the need for natural ventilation. And I believe David Edwards is going to talk quite a bit about that. And just want to make mention of another detail, or one of our projects, which was the first one we designed to the wildland urban interface standards. And it has now actually survived 2 wildfires. So some credit to the CAL FIRE and the State Fire Marshal bringing those standards to us. They do work. And finally, the last benefit, which is really building on Jennifer's talk, is the ability of straw as a material to store carbon in the form of 1.62 pounds of CO2 for every pound of material, or approximately 10.5 tons in a 2,000 square foot home. Another very aggressive example from a colleague in the UK using chopped straw within compressed straw panels and a timber cladding to achieve a very aggressively carbon storing little tiny home. We ourselves got involved in a straw bale wrap of a home in Palo Alto, and this type of retrofit for both energy performance as well as the carbon storing benefits represents a huge opportunity throughout our country. One of our projects, a hybrid straw bale, and we just calculated here that the use of straw as insulation for the walls instead of steel studs, fiberglass, and some type of foam insulation wrap actually stored 72 tons of CO2 versus emitting 60. So some net 12 tons of CO2 storage there. At this particular project, we also utilized the clay soil from the site to do the finish on the interior side of those straw insulated walls. So that's one example. Another example, possibly the best example in the world, is this 7-story housing project in France that utilized a timber frame, cross-laminated timber panels, and then boxes basically of straw as insulation to the exterior. And you can see in this graph how the wood and straw greatly offset the carbon impacts of the concrete and steel in this impressive example. We've been involved with Arup and Stop Waste here in the East Bay, looking at what would a prototype building be able to store in terms of carbon here in Northern California. So a quick peek at our development of this particular example as it's underway. And then finally, sort of to bring it home, and I think it's worth mentioning that one of the impacts of COVID is the importance that our homes have had. Most of you are probably participating in this meeting from home and creating energy efficient, comfortable homes that are, for many of us, the source of not only our workplace, but school for kids, entertainment, and our connection. So having comfortable spaces that actually represent a path towards net zero energy is something that I see connecting green building with COVID. And of course, at the beginning of this year, net zero energy mandate for all new homes here in our state is underway, and just a few strategies to consider as we're approaching net zero. Of course, passive solar, balanced daylight, building envelope, and of course, making an all-electric home that's powered with renewable energy. So just one last example, which is also in the South Bay region, this one in Palo Alto as well, and a project where we were able to integrate net zero energy with careful passive solar strategies here, shaping a courtyard in the house around an existing group of oaks, careful attention to daylight and controlling direct sun for passive cooling, utilizing both photovoltaics and solar hot water collectors in the performance of the building. This is the main living space with clear stories for daylight. And then a building envelope, which in this case included both air tightness details and a wrap, in this case, mineral wool, which we would probably today be doing with cork or wood fiber. So a last look at that particular example. And I just am obligated as a member of the AIA's 2030 Commitment Working Group to invite all of you who are not yet signatories to the AIA's 2030 commitment to please do so. Start recording your projects and make a sustainability action plan, and really join us in this path towards achieving our 2030 goals. New this year is the new version of the Design Data Exchange, which features embodied carbon as a new metric that we're trying to keep track of. So look forward to questions and answers, and thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And now we have David Edwards. You're muted.
All right, everybody see my screen? Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so it's never admirable to or enviable to follow David Arkin in a green building talk. So I've decided to touch upon something that I'm trained in, not only as a biochemist, but my job before I became a builder was to genetically engineer viruses to attack human cancer cells. So I figured I'd go someplace where I feel a little bit comfortable. Now, I don't know if everybody saw this a couple days ago, but Germany has now run an entire advertising campaign thanking all the lazy people for staying at home. And they have like guys that are playing computer games and saying, yeah, I never get outside. And they're like putting them on advertising saying, thank you for stopping the spread of coronavirus. And so, you know, not only does that, it's an interesting story because it talks about how the people who maybe aren't the heroes originally have become the heroes because of the circumstances that we now find ourselves in, and how much the world has changed. And I would say that the world has changed even more in California and Colorado now, because not only do we have a pandemic to deal with, but climate change has shown us that fires are going to become a real issue for us. And so my talk is really about trying to explain how things have changed in our environment, especially in California, and how we need to think a little bit differently than we have been thinking. So unfortunately, the conversation of indoor air quality is an extremely large discussion, and this is a multi-hour class as opposed to 10 minutes worth of slides. So I'm going to stick to a couple things that have really changed over the last 9 or 10 months. And they're identified in red. So not only are we exposed to fires at a greater extent than the state has ever experienced in the last 100 years, but we're also exposed to the SARS-CoV-19 virus, or naturally occurring materials and organisms. And so both of those contaminants can be categorized as particulates. And I would like to focus on those, but I want to, before we kind of deep dive into them, I want to define the fact that not all particulates are bad. And, you know, I show kids with dogs here because there's actually, and you can see it in this reference right here, in this reference right here, that exposure to common environmental antigens are actually good for the human immune system. And so the idea that we should filter everything and live in sterile environments is not what I'm trying to go after. I'm trying to speak to the specific deleterious to human health organisms and materials that we're finding ourselves exposed to now. Now, in the past, what we've talked about, and mostly when dealing with indoor air quality, is exchanging the air from inside a building, whether it's a residential building or commercial building, with outside air. And you see that in the ways that we typically lower indoor air contamination, 3 of them have to do with venting or exchanging interior air, which is assumed to be the common kind of multiple you see is about 10 times more contaminated for fresh, healthy outdoor air. And that's actually changed a little bit. And so we see that, typical air changes per hour in residential and commercial, you're seeing anywhere between 3 and, depending on the functioning of those rooms, up to 20 air changes per hour. Now, how is that air change happening? Well, typically it's happening by exchanging it with exterior air, which we assume to be healthy. Now, recent data from the scientific community has shown that, and it's not been repeated multiple times, but basically the inoculum, which means the amount of virus that a person is exposed to, is directly correlated to the severity of their diseases, which means that if you have a room that has X number of viruses in it, and you have an air change, so a filtration or a ventilation system that changes the air in that space, air changes per hour 2 times, it takes 138 minutes before 99% of that virus is removed from the house or the building. If you exchange 10 times air changes per hour, it takes 28 minutes. So that means that you're reducing by 110 minutes the amount of time that you're exposed to that virus. Okay, these are serious health-related consequences, and these are some things that we need to now be aware of, and we need to understand how we can affect change in the buildings that we design and the structures that we build. Now, as I mentioned, air changes per hour has been all awesome and an easy thing to factor in until recently. And this is a picture, it's a very famous picture I stole off the internet, of the air around the Golden Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge, maybe that's the Bay Bridge. Anyway, doesn't look very good. And unfortunately, this old paradigm that the dilution to solution is pollution, a Republican told me that. I thought it was hilarious, and you can't assume that anymore. And we've built a lot of houses that have radiant heat flooring systems, right? And a lot of our houses also have forced air furnaces, but most of the time those furnaces are designed and installed according to JD&S and TCALCs, which are really for heating and cooling loads and don't really address air quality. The recent revision of ASHRAE 62.1, the 2019 revision, actually takes into consideration the quality of the exterior air, this fresh air. Now, unfortunately, that fresh air is assumed to be static, and really the transient nature of forest fires or other environmental events are not taken into consideration. And so even if you designed a building or a house with ASHRAE 62.1, it wouldn't assume that this was the air quality that you're dealing with. So we need to think about this a little bit differently. And unfortunately, the typical ventilation systems that most builders, certainly in residential, use, the bath fans, the HRVs, the range hoods, and the required makeup air systems for tight buildings require or depend on higher quality outside air. And we just can't depend on that anymore. Now, before I get into the mechanisms by which we can affect that, I'd like to talk just a little bit about what we're dealing with. So tobacco smoke or forest fires are not going away. So the state of California has recently dedicated $1 billion over the next 5 years to do controlled burns. And they're talking about burning about a million acres of land a year. Now, back when the Indians maintained the forests in the state of California, or what is now the state of California, they were burning more forest or allowing more forest to burn than we burned this year, which means that these kind of events are actually fairly normal. Now, we have much stronger fires now, which has resulted in a shorter fire season, because we've had this idea that putting out forest fires is the only way to live in our planet. And we need to realize, or we finally realize, that that's actually not the case. And that if we want to save human life and save the built environment and all the places that we live, we actually need to maintain the forest. Now, not raking the forest, but letting it burn. And there's a direct health consequence to that. Soot particles and the toxins that they're composed of. And if everybody remembers, a soot particle is in typically less than 2.5 nanometers in size. Those particle sizes go into the lungs, and the smaller particle sizes can actually come into the lungs. They either get taken up by blood cells, which are macrophages, and put into the bloodstream. They can pass between cells or through cells and go into the bloodstreams, and they get passed all over the body. A typical soot particle, either from forest fire or tobacco smoke, has 4,700 different chemicals, 60 of which are carcinogens, some of which are radioactive. And we see that non-smokers live on average 10 years longer. So these have direct consequential effects on human health. Now, the soot particles can largely be dealt with particulate filtration. Now, I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the MERV ratings, which stands for essentially a pore size. And you can see that viruses are about, well, the typical coronavirus is about 0.3 microns. And so you'll see that if a MERV 13 and larger or higher number will capture between 75 and 99%. HEPA filters are MERV 17 and above. They'll catch 99% of these particulates. They'll also catch about 99% of soot particulates, which are about 0.3 microns. These filters can be 5 inches thick, okay? Typical residential filters, you're putting in 1-2 inch. Sometimes we have to start thinking differently about the HVAC systems we put in our houses and our buildings. And one of the things we need to think about is that the higher the MERV rating goes, the greater the pressure drop across that filter, which means that the lower velocity, so the lower amount of air that gets delivered to these buildings. And what that means is that we need to start upsizing our motors on our HVAC systems. We need to start using bigger filters, and we need to start delivering more air, because when you have reduced flow, you get reduced filtering capacity and reduced cleaning of the air. And if we go back a couple slides, you'll see that the air changes per hour is how you regulate the impacts of the virus and the soot particles on human health. Now, I like this slide because I'm a big fan of the wolves changes river philosophy, and what are called tropic effects. And to me, the virus and human behavior is actually causing us to change behavior, and also to change how we design and think about structures. And I'd like you to kind of focus on the fact that there's 2 different types that are now currently open. Now are currently regulated. And these are open, and it's households, it's outdoor gatherings, and not open. Schools. So you'll notice that we have schools here that up to 8th grade, and then we have high schools and colleges. And we see that we have different, not only virus profiles, children don't seem to pass viruses onto adults nearly as well as young adults in high school and colleges. We have behavioral issues with college students, going out and partying and hanging out in big groups and acting rather rambunctious. We have outdoor activities, but we also have required things like public transit. We have things like restaurants, where people are typically taking off their masks to eat and drink. Those are closed because of behaviors. Now, I'm a residential builder, but I also know there's going to be a lot of commercial builders here, and a lot of commercial architects here. And we have to understand, and I've tried to keep this generally vague, but we have to understand that different functions with each building mean we need to treat each space differently, right? So houses are going to be treated differently than restaurants, are going to be treated differently than gyms, are going to be treated differently than schools. So how do we deal with viruses? Well, we can filter them out. We can also kill them. And there's two generalized accepted methods of killing virus. One you'll typically find in large commercial spaces where you have high viral loads. These technologies were really developed to deal with tuberculosis, which is also an airborne virus. And it's called upper air germicidal UV light. And these are essentially lamps, and they're fairly commonly purchased UV lamps that put out essentially high power UVC, which is a high power, low wavelength UV light that will kill airborne viruses. And they're put above people's heads so that people aren't getting irradiated by this light all the time. And they're actually much, much better at killing virus in ambient air than is filtration. And in fact, you can have a contaminated person and an uncontaminated person in a room, and these UV lights will actually deal with that viral load, whereas in filtration will not. And filtration will typically take many, many times more. So killing these viruses in rooms is actually really relevant. We also, as everybody is understands, is we can deal with irradiating viruses in HVAC systems, but that requires the transfer of that air, and the air is then dependent, or the amount of cleaning is then dependent on the air changes per hour. And nobody wants to hear their furnaces running at 800 CFM in a room of 10 by 10, right? The other problem is that this particulate air is highly dependent on the exposure to that UV light, which is directly related to the cleanness of the air and the amount of time they spend in front of that UV light. And then if there's the size of the actual particle. And so there is no one solution for all of these things. And we need to start thinking a little bit differently. And we need to realize that clean, healthy air is a necessity of human life and, any life that lives in a building. So what is the new normal? Well, we need to realize that fresh, healthy air is not a given, that fires are going to get worse, not better, and that pandemics are going to get more common, not less common. We also need to think that we need to realize that the current thinking is not going to meet our future demands, and it doesn't really even meet our current demands. We need typical fresh air systems that are in place right now do not provide the air changes per hour needed to clean a contaminated air, whether it's contaminated with soot or contaminated with virus. And in existing ventilation systems were not designed to meet the air changes per hour with the filtration needed to clean the air, which is a MERV 13 or above, because of the air pressure drop I talked about earlier. And even these two systems right here, this system delivers that fresh, healthy air and the return air, so that actually will go through the filtering and the irradiation systems and be delivered back to the building. This one delivers fresh, healthy air to the supply duct, meaning that that's not getting filtered. Well, if the outside air is filled with soot, you're just filling the house with soot, right? Slight little differences in how we design these systems have dramatic impacts on the effectiveness of that system. So how do we think about what we're going to do in the future? Well, we need to realize that current events suggest that we cannot depend on humans to act in their own best interest, meaning wearing masks, or in the best interest of the people around them. And we need to take a responsibility to help design our buildings and build our buildings that protect people's health, whether or not the occupants are interested in that. And I'm sure that lots of you guys here have designed buildings, whether greenhouses or a green building, that had the best engineering and the best design and didn't perform because the occupants didn't understand how they had to live or had to occupy those buildings. We also need to change our understanding of the role of forced air systems and heat recovery systems play in home functioning. We can't just assume that bath fans and a range hood is going to give us enough clean air. And we have to realize that, sometimes outside is not going to be a good source of fresh air. We need to think about filtration and irradiation. And lastly, ventilation and air handling systems with sterilization and or for filtration need to be designed into the structure. So we need to make an effort to design properly the air chases that allow us to deliver fresh, clean air to all portions of the building and not just depend on air leakage. And it's going to be even harder, as David was mentioning earlier, with the zero energy mandate for the state of California. Our houses are getting tighter, which means air is not exchanging by normal pressure methods of air exchange, which means indoor air is going to get more contaminated. And if we can't come up with a delivery system that doesn't always have the ability to bring in fresh air from the exterior, we're going to get unhappy and unhealthy clients and residents. And I appreciate everybody's time, and I hope I didn't get too long. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. So we're at kind of 7:33, but I would just like to ask I think all the presentations are fascinating and answers a lot of the questions that we received. Yeah, so thank you so much for the presentation. It's really great. I just want to ask a closing question, a big picture question. What do you see as the biggest challenge ahead of sustainable building if we were to coexist with COVID?
I mean, I think it's health. I mean, we have already realized the supply chain has been decimated in the construction industry. We're struggling to get everything from appliances to circuit breakers to lumber. You know, those are going to get resolved when we have the 2 immunizations that we see coming from Moderna and Pfizer, I think. That's going to help this pandemic, whether it helps current pandemics or not, but it doesn't address the fire issue. We still have to address the fire issue. And, you know, who knows what's going to happen in global warming and environmental destruction on future health challenges.
Yeah, I guess I see that challenge as, you know, an opportunity at the same time, and would stress to everyone, whether they're building commercial, residential, or institutional, to factor in passive survivability, which is what happens if the utilities are cut off to this building. Can the occupants survive safely and comfortably? And I think when you apply that reasoning to your design strategy, you find that the net result is a building that's more energy efficient, and then you can make up the difference with renewables. That is our challenge for sure. And then we'll throw in there that, oh, and by the way, it should be a, you know, net zero emitted carbon or carbon storing building at the same time. I mean, these are exciting times to be an architect for sure.
How about you, Jennifer? Anything to add?
And you're muted. There you go.
Thanks. Oh, and I'm not on video. Sorry. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. And I think, you know, as we've all mentioned, it's, you know, and it, you know, what was just said is it's an exciting time, right? So, you know, it's usually through a catastrophe or some kind of major event that, you know, causes us to rethink what we're doing and reevaluate. And that's where innovation happens. So I think we're at that point, and that's why it's so exciting. I don't think any of us have all of the solutions or all the answers, but if we did, how boring would that be? I mean, I think we're all here because we like the challenge. So I think it's, you know, this is the right time to think about everything that we've gone through over this past year at a little bit of a deeper level in the way that we are processing information and thinking about things and how they're all connected and related to each other, and how that's relevant to what we do with our work. And I think if we apply that type of thinking, you know, we're operating from a place of really coming up with solutions for the longevity, you know, for the 50-year plan and the off-grid plan. So yeah, that's what I would add. I'd say it's been a tough year, but I think it's also a year for opportunity, and I think it's an exciting time.
Thank you, Jennifer. I would like to just thank everyone. If you can just type in the chat box, just one key takeaway and what is your action item that you got away from today. So that would be great. You can take a look at, and if Alex can just do one more poll question. That would be great. And again, this is the beginning of, our conversation. And I personally learned a lot. I feel this is so great. I feel like I want another session just to continue this discussion. And as architects, builder, designers, I think we can all benefit from each other on these brainstorming sessions. So yeah, I hope this is really helpful to you all. And I'm just looking at the chat. Clean air and learn more about controlling daylight, safety and wellness. Collaborate to innovate. Good thoughts. And human behaviors are very important than before. Yes. Oh, thanks, David. Again, please help your firm become a signatory to the AIA 2030 commitment if you aren't already. Thanks. Great. So looking at the poll, yeah, we're all, I think I was in the middle of somewhat, feel like somewhat it was related, but now a lot of people are showing feel like it's very related. So of green building and COVID-19. Some more thoughts, battling carbon, and if I'm missing anything, Sharon saying I need to think more about ventilation than I have in the past. Again, ventilation IAQ, design right, regardless of human behavior, carbon sequestration, passive before active. Yes, for ventilation too. Great. Okay, if there is nothing else, yeah, let's thank you again. Just virtual clap for our panelists, and you guys are amazing. I feel very inspired. And this session is recorded, so feel free to share. I find it so fascinating. I want to share with a lot of people in my in the firm too. So thank you everyone for attending, and just email me or email Chris if you have any thoughts, ideas, and we can continue this conversation. So thank you everyone.
Thank you, Fanny, for hosting.
Thank you, Fanny, for all your work on this. This was a great panel discussion. I do want to invite everyone before we close, and I know sometimes we get a quick drop off as everyone is Zoom fatigued, but we would like to break out into rooms just for any more questions. Our panelists will also be spun out into the rooms. A chance to just say hi to colleagues and take just a minute or two, even if we just do a 10-minute room breakout, it would just be nice for everyone to have a chance to say hello. So please stay on for just a minute. If that means going to get a glass of wine or a soda or whatever, and coming back in a couple minutes, I can still spin you out into rooms, so don't worry about that. So for those of you that want to stay on, I'm going to go ahead and send you out in just a minute into breakout rooms. And I hope that some of you stay on just to say hello to everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Give me just a minute. And I'm going to send you out. So hopefully you'll stay on. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. I left the meeting, not the room.
That's okay. I just moved. Yep. You're going right over to Ian's room. I just sent you.
Who's on the committee?
I just sent you to Ian's. Oh, why aren't you going? Hang on. It says not joined. Did it give you an option to go move into 5? I'm showing you're in room
To
5.
do what?
You should have a message saying join there. Do you have a leave the room
No.
down at the bottom? Leave the room, because I show that you're in.
Okay, here's Lee.
Yeah, so leave the room, come back to me. I've moved you already to 5. You're assigned to room 5, which is where
So
he
my
is.
next option is to leave the meeting.
Hold on, just what's the option?
How about join breakout room? Here,
Jennifer, we're getting good at this. Did you log out instead of leave your room? I'm starting to figure out what's happening around here. Do you want to go to another room?
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, let me see if I can do it. Hang on. I've been moving people in and out. It's been great. I've been coming and going, so just hang tight with me.
Did John Black join today? Our new member?
Yes. Did I just see? I just saw him. Hold on.
I saw him in a room. I'd love to be in the room where he's
Okay.
in.
I just saw Fernando and Gayatri. No, he's the only one who didn't.
Oh, okay.
Can I put you in with Ian because he's one of our scholarship award winners, and Kartiki's not talking and neither of the other people are, and I put Donna in there and Donna will yak. So can I add you there to help with that? We have just another 2 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and move you there then. That is room 5. They need help. Thank you.
Okay.
This is actually going really well. So, oh, hey Keith, where do you want to go? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, I think I want to go home.
So I just moved. So Ian is in a room with his father from Mexico, and then Kartiki was in there. So that room was awkward. And then Donna wanted to move to see him. I went and grabbed her. I actually went into the room she was in to add her because I knew she would yak, and she was on the committee. But then it was like, oh gosh, now I need to add somebody else. So then Jennifer came out and I said, Jennifer, can I add you to that room? It needs some conversation. So I put her over there. Hello, Sharon. So let me see if we need help in one of the rooms. I think that one room is really the one that's just not strong. Oh, wait, room 3. Oh, that's now just.
Sharon, you're on mute.
Okay, so room 3 emptied out because you both were the last 2 to come out and you moved out here.
Yeah, Fanny was gone.
Okay. All right. Well, everyone's coming back in about 45 seconds. So I'll say a final goodbye unless you can stay on one more second, Keith.
Sure.
Everyone's going to come back from the breakout rooms in just a minute. In fact, I'll go ahead and close them. It'll give them the countdown and everyone will come back into one room. All right, here we go. They have 15 seconds. They get their warning. The rooms went really well tonight, I have to say. Good. Yeah, lots of great. And I was able to pop in and out, which was really nice to be able to see what's going on in them. Here they come.
Yeah. I guess everyone has to unmute themselves when they come back here.
Yep, when you come back, unmute.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Letitia.
Hello.
Here's
How are you doing? I know. I'm on my phone.
There we go. Well,
crazy day. Yep.
This was great. Thank you to all of our panelists and Fanny and Alex for all your hard work.
It's a good one. Yeah. Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey.
Good to see you, Jennifer.
The star of the show.
Yeah.
I'm going to point out one more time, we have a couple of new members that joined tonight, which was great. They were in our new member orientation. Welcome, Gayatri. Do we see Fernando? Is he still with us? Or yep, Fernando's still here. Welcome, Fernando. And good to see some new members joining in, as well as some of our veterans. So Jennifer, I didn't know about the skating history, so we're gonna have to chat about that offline. I love that. I think that's so cool. Every girl wanted to be a competitive skater.
Well, let's just say I know some people too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we can have a chapter meeting if we get to meet in person again. We could go to the ice rink or something.
I know people over there, so I've got people in my pocket for over at San Jose Ice and SAP. So maybe
they're adding on again.
Yeah, maybe we can make that happen. You can teach us all. I know I'm going to need one of the 5-gallon buckets.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Anyway, well, it's great to see everyone, and thanks for participating. And encourage all of your colleagues to join us for these chapter meetings because, you know, they're informative. We put a lot into them. And then, of course, it's always great to see everyone afterwards and have a minute to visit since we can't see everyone in person. So
when's the invite for the holiday party going to go out, do you think?
Soon. we're just trying to get the final details out. And as I mentioned, yes, sign up quickly.
I don't want to miss the sign up for that. Yeah. That sounds great.
Good to see you, Robert.
Good. It's
Yeah,
going
good
to
to
be
see you,
really
Frank.
fun.
I was thinking of you when I put this background up, Frank.
For sailing, right?
Everybody's got the going above the Golden Gate Bridge, but mine's underneath in a sailboat.
That's perfect.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, good to see everyone. We'll
Stay safe, everyone.
sign off at 7:59, which is great. And good to see everyone. Hopefully, we'll see you all at the holiday party.
Take care.
All right.
Happy
Bye. You all.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy
Bye.
Thanksgiving,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye. Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.